Today I present you the story of Itoki Sakuraba, who was a normal student until one day, his life took a 360 turn, since he will discover that he is the 19th heir of some famous ninjas. That's why today I present you. And yes, this is the name of the anime. In this part 1, always put the name of the anime, but sometimes there are people who don't realize it, so I warn you in case of doubt. If you are new, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, since there are a large percentage of people who watch the videos but are not subscribed, so subscribe, it's free. Hear in the distance that something was spying on him, and he will also be chased every day by a mysterious ninja named Kusetsu, although good not so mysterious, since the truth is that she is a friend of the childhood of the prota, and if she follows him is because the mother of the prota asked her to do it. However, the prota realized that he was going to be late. Since the academy was late, so to cut the road, he began to do parkour through the city, but out of nowhere, the wild Kum truck appears. However, the prota took a spin in the air on the truck, so he could escape. The next day, as always, Kusetsu follows him again, and when the prota arrives at his locker, he found a love letter inside, and as he is tremendous Virgolini and this had never happened to him, for the rest of the day he kept thinking about the letter, since he could not believe it, until he finally met the girl who left him the letter. Since she introduces herself as Satomi, and when the protagonist was also going to introduce himself, she told him that she already knew his name, and that she had always seen him, which is a bit weird. And weirder is that she tells him that the protagonist is the coolest guy to save himself from the truck, since it turns out that that day she was there too. But it will be weirder that this girl asks the protagonist to go to his house, since his parents are not there. Don't you think that's a little curious? Like Jorge, once in the waifu's room, the prota was analyzing the panorama, and in that Satomi enters with a drink for both, so the prota wonders what they could do, and even gave the idea that they play rock, paper, scissors, but in what he realized, that Satomi did start to take off her clothes. This obviously made the prota scared like the big guy he is, but Kei already declared it to him, telling him that he likes her, and even wanted to kiss him and everything, but when she came to kiss him, the prota that made a snake said that he dodged the kiss. Scared, our prota thinks that this is a kind of pram hidden camera, you know, so he begins to see around him waiting for her to be joking. Even looked under the bed, and here he saw two bright eyes that were looking at him from the dark. The prota, seeing this, scared, fell back, and when he realized he had a wound on his face, and that 3 wild ninjas appeared who were looking to attack the prota, but at that moment a knife flew out of nowhere to the room emitting a smoke bomb, and this was nothing more and nothing less than Kusetsu, which appeared in the smoke dragging the prota with it. So while she started fighting trying to defeat the ninjas, the protag was thrown out the window and was rescued by a waifu since they got him out of this car. While the car was leaving the place, the protag began to scream since he did not know who it was, but the woman told him to calm down since it was nothing more and nothing less than Reiha, which works with the mother of Itoki in the store. After realizing who they were, the protag calmed down and asked where they were going, to which Kaso told him that they were going to a place far from the city, but the proto was wondering what about Kusetsu. However, they tell him that she will be fine and that now they will take him to a safe place, but at that moment they are intercepted by a car, which threw them to their tire, causing the car in which the proto was going to crash against the wall. But the kid wakes up the proto and asks him to return to the center of the city, and he tells him to go where there are many people. So the prota runs out, asking how the hell this situation came, and so the prota continued running until it was night. But the problem is that there were no people where he was, so he wondered where the hell he was. The thing will get worse for the prota, because at that moment there is a blackout, but the prota just found an officer and told him the situation. So he tells him that he went to a friend's house and that some bad people attacked him. The officer tells the prota that the light went out in this area because they are installing a transformer, and the prota did not know about this because he says that he does not know the area well. But the thing is going to get turbid, since out of nowhere wild ninja appears and ends the life of the officer, and the prota gets a big putazo. However, at that moment, Tokasada appeared, which is nicknamed the Living Demon, and Tokasada says that this is very annoying, since it turns out that his official position was only being the dead. So after saying that, Tokasada ends them. When he wakes up, the protagonist asks who those guys were and why they attacked him, but he only tells him to get out of the car and that they have already arrived. The protagonist was wondering where he was, to which he is told that they are in his family mansion. Once inside the mansion, the protagonist goes to meet the head of the clan, which is his mother, but his mother asks him to call her the head of the clan. Here his mother confesses to him that they are a shinobi clan from the village of Iga, but the protagonist could not believe this, since for his perspective it is supposed that his mother is the head of a store in a service area, but it turns out that this was a mask to hide his true identity. The protagonist also finds out that the ninjas were born hundreds of years ago and have continued to live to this day, altering their appearances, and that there are now villages all over the country. So all ninjas live camouflaged among members of society doing different jobs, as is the service area store. His mother also informs him that ninjas have very strict rules and prevent conflict between villages following those rules. This is how the balance has been maintained in recent decades. In the last decades, however, lately the Koga village is causing problems as it seeks to break that balance, and of the many villages that exist, the Koga ninjas use as a weapon their great economic fortune and their modern ninjutsu, since they have learned that they plan to take over the Higa village. So his mother tries to tell him that the people who attacked him are ninjas from the Koga village, and the reason why they go after the life of the protagonist is because he, Shimano Bino, of the village of the ninja Siga, and the reason why the mother of the prota believed it so strictly was for this moment. So his mother tells him that he has to become a ninja, but the prota does not think this is possible. However, his mother tells him that there is no problem, and that he has already learned the basic principles of ninjutsu, since his mother says that if the Koga have decided to carry out these actions so direct now, it is necessary Kitoki, learn to defend yourself. But what the protagonist wanted to say is that first of all, he cannot believe that there are ninjas. However, this guy tries to tell the protagonist that the Koga ninjas must be hidden somewhere to try to kill him. So he asks the prota to understand him, but the prota says that then we have to call the police. But they tell him that the ninjas can easily deceive the police, so this would not help at all. So they tell the prota that he can only trust the people of the village and himself. At that moment Tokasada takes the prota, and he says that he will be a ninja or if he wants to die. But the proto asks himself how he is going to decide that so suddenly, since he did not understand anything, since he had barely time. He led a normal life, he went to school and studied, and even thought of going to the same high school as his friend. So the proto had many plans. So when he heard this, Tokasada says that it will be the third option then, since Tokasada tells him that they will escape and he will protect him until things calm down. And although this would be a nuisance for Tokasada, the mother of the prota ordered her to escape with him if she wanted to. So this is the only opportunity to run away that the prota has without anyone realizing it. So he tells her that no matter what option she chooses, no one will blame her. Tokasada also tells the prota that his father was the head of the village IGA, and when he died the prota was his heir, but he was still a child, so at that time his mother took the position to protect the village, and he was offered to stay with that role instead of the prota. So Tokadata tells him that she is not a ninja, but a normal person who one day became the boss of some ninjas. So he tells her that it is exactly the situation in which the prota is now. When he hears this, the prota knows that he cannot leave his mother alone, so he decides to stay and become a ninja. Meanwhile, the Koga are gathered, since they are with the substitute boss discussing their matters. Oh, why didn't I tell you? But the previous Koga boss was sent with Diacito, and the substitute boss says that Koga is strong and that IGA is fragile, so he says that they can take their time to be able to go and finish them. The next day, the prota will be explained the plan of the future, since they have decided that the school in which it is not safe now, so they tell him that he will have to leave it temporarily. So due to this, the prota will attend another school, specifically the Academy of Ninjutsu Kokuten, since this academy is the only school of ninjas in Japan. So the prota is shown a commercial of the academy and everything. And the prota, when he sees it, says that this fake video was well done, but that of ninja has nothing. However, the prota is told that it is real, but the prota is surprised because the video is available on the net, but that's why no one believes that it is authentic. And this academy is located far from ordinary people, and other ninjas that are not students cannot infiltrate. They even tell the prota that there is a dormitory for students, so they tell him that he can live safely. And the most important thing is that this academy is under the jurisdiction of the CNMSN, since they say that there is no safer place. And it turns out that the day after tomorrow there is an exam to enter the Ninjutsu Academy, but as they do not know where the exam site will be until that day, they will make you maybe go for the prota in the morning of the exam. Meanwhile, the mother of the prota was attending his store as always, but in that this guy arrived, who introduces himself as Van, sales director of Toga Holding, and this guy came here because he wants to raise the price of the majority. However, this old man tries to claim, saying that Dulce Snitman and them have a relationship of years, but this guy repeats that he had told him at the beginning that Dulce Snitman would become part of Koga Holding. So the old man was like planning to buy the suppliers to put pressure on the village. It is a violation of the regulations and ordinances of the ninja world, but he says that the CNMSN judged that it is not a violation, so the mother of the prototype has no choice but to accept his conditions to continue with the business. And speaking of the CNMSN, the prototype wondered, what is that? And it turns out that this is the National Committee on Security Measures in Ninjutsu, better known as CNMSN. Since about 70 years ago, there was a great conflict in the world of the shinobi, which was a tragedy that involved all the villages, so it was created that organization to prevent future disputes between ninja villages. So basically that's the purpose of the CNMSN. The next day, the protagonist meets with Tokizawa and Kasetsu, and as the protagonist is not prepared or anything, he asks Tokizawa if he can really pass, and the protagonist is like, the ninjas don't use ninjutsu or something like Naruto, but Tokizawa was literally looking at him with the face of what is this asshole saying? And the prota here realizes that he really said something strange, but what he wants to ask is that if he does not have to practice to be able to use those things at that moment. Tokazada was already warned where the exam will be, so it's time to go there, and the exam will be exactly exactly in the area of service Koga, so the Prota when reading Koga was already worried, but Tokozada tells him not to worry, that ninjas are strictly forbidden to kill, so he tells him that he will not die or anything. When the Prota enters the place, he realizes that there is no reception or anything, but Kasetsu tells him to ask an employee where they sell ninja food, and the Prota did not understand anything, but he listens to him, so he goes to an employee and asks him where they sell ninja food. So the Prota is taken to this place, and they tell him to wait in the back room, and he wonders if it really is here. But Kasetsu tells him not to lower his guard. When he arrived at the room, the priest realized that more students were there, and since they are all here, the entrance exam to the academy will begin. So the teacher says that the exam will be a simulated test of ninjutsu. Play the hidden one, and this test will be carried out with two: the one who hides and the one who seeks. Since first one will hide inside the service area, and the exam begins a minute later, when the one who searches comes out from behind, and the time limit to find him is 10 minutes. And here Kasetsu is the first to search, and if it turns out that the one who hid is not discovered, he passes the test. And on his side, the one who searches must find the one who hid and touch him to pass the exam. And this exam is observed at all times through the security cameras, so if they discover that they violate any of the ninja orders, they will be disqualified immediately. For his part, Kasetsu found quickly the one he had to look for, so she passed the exam. Now it's time for the Prota, and this girl with green hair, he has to hide. The girl at first seemed very shy, but when the Prota saw her in the eyes, he ended up scaring, since he had a very psychopathic look. After the girl hid, the Prota is told that his exam begins, so the nervous goes out to look, and wonders how this is possible and what is going to be, and in that a guy was going directly to the Prota to attack him, but Tokusada entered the rescue, so he takes him to the guy as if nothing time passed, and the Prota did not find him, and he thinks he is in great danger, and in that the Prota sees Kasetsu, which tells him to keep silent, since he tells him that if they discover that he helps him, both will reprove, and here Kasetsu also tells him that inside there are hidden ninjas that go after him, to which the Prota says that then we must flee, but if they do that they would reprove him, and they wouldn't enter the academy. But, in that moment the Prota is attacked, however Kasetsu reacted quickly, and could deflect the attack, and Kasetsu realized that the person who attacked the Prota used Type 3 Mirage, but the Prota did not understand what she was talking about, however Kasetsu tells her to just focus on passing the exam, so she leave. But the Prota thought that she would not be able to pass the exam. Meanwhile, Kasetsu went to the bathroom, and the wild ninja appeared, so she started fighting, and since there are no cameras in the bathroom, they can fight very comfortably. However, this ninja fled to camouflage mode to look for the Prota. Meanwhile, the Prota had an idea, so he activated an extinguisher and the fire alarm, and thanks to this method, he discovered the ninja's camouflage that was looking for him, and when she was going for the Prota, Rosetsu could intervene. So at that moment, they caught this ninja, and she was arrested. But to bad luck of the Prota, when he activated the water sprays, the time limit was over. So the Prota is asked why he did this, and he is told that there are other measures against active camouflage. So he is told that as a ninja, he must avoid any action that makes him stand out. But the Prota did not want to involve anyone, so he thought that if he did what he did, everyone would evacuate the area. At the end of the day, the exam went very badly, so the Prota was wondering what would happen to him. What is going to be of him? To which they tell him that he has to hide until the next exam, and the Prota was wondering where he was going to hide, to which Takizad tells him that 4 days on board here, there is a deserted island without infrastructure of the city, but the Prota said that he did not want to go there. At that moment, Takizad received a call, and this seemed very surprised, since it turns out that the Prota did pass the exam, and the Prota wondered how this happened. Meanwhile, Gaucho, the captain of the National Security Measures Committee Ninja, is talking to the deputy chief of the Koga, since according to the ninja orders they arrested Satomi for attempted murder, so Satomi was in jail basically, and the deputy chief first of all apologizes on behalf of the whole village, but he tells him that the 5 he arrested were missing since last month, and that the Koga were chasing those ninjas like deserters, so he says that as deputy chief of the Koga village he thanks him for his help in this matter. However, Gasho tells him that the Koga lately smell very suspicious, so he tells him that if more happens he will ask them to assume their responsibility, but at that moment, the thing is going to rot since Gasho receives a call, and they tell him that Satomi is tough. The Prota could finally return to his school, and his friends tell him that they panicked when he suddenly disappeared. But the Prota makes an excuse that he isolated himself from the networks to study, and that his friends tell him that why he did not say that he was going to a high school in Tokyo, although they do not know that he really plans to go to a ninja high school, and his friends tell him that even if he goes far, they will have fun when he returns. So this moves the Prota, and he starts crying. Once graduated, the Prota is told that he has to dedicate himself to the study in body and soul to be a great boss IGA, so he is going to start the way to Tokyo. When he arrives in Tokyo, the Prot and Kasetsu went to the train station, and once on the train, they had already been like 3 hours inside a tunnel. However, Kasetsu tells the Prot that he stopped bothering with his questions, but at that moment, they left the tunnel, so the Prot was very surprised when the Prot arrives. He stays watching this girl, which catches his attention, and this girl realizes, so he greets her. The protagonist introduces himself to this girl, and this girl is called Ryoko, but when Ryoko left, Kasetsu kicked her. The protagonist, seeing the panorama, Kiriyama, tells Kasetsu that he thinks he will have a lot of fun in his school life, but Kasetsu when he hears this thinks that he is just a brat. When the protagonist realized, Kasetsu was no longer by his side, since the protagonist is going to meet these guys, and as they almost collide, the protagonist apologized, but these guys look bad on him, especially the one with red hair. Why didn't I tell you? But do you remember the guy from the Koga who went to the prota's mother's store to upload things? It turns out that this redhead is his son, but at that moment this blonde approaches the prota, and pretends that they were friends, so he takes him. The prota didn't understand what was happening, but this blonde says that she was afraid because she saw how the prota was directed and clumsily to fall in the middle of them. So here the blonde tells him that that group are the Creminata of the Ninja Koga. So he tells the protagonist that he must be very careful, because if they have it in their sight, he tells him that his school life will be hell. And I had not introduced you to this blonde, but her name is Kirai. When the protagonist introduces himself to the blonde, she asks him what village it is, to which the protagonist tells him that it is the Sega. So she hears this. She reacts surprised because she asks if he really is one of the famous Ninja Sega, because the blonde says that even normal people have heard of the Ninja Sega, although now they say they are poor and are in the ruin or on the verge of extinction. But the blonde tells the prota that he is more or less in the same situation, so she tells him to be friends, but the prota ends up accepting the director is going to tell them what the three ninja principles are, and those are not be discovered, not to kill, and not to betray. So the director says that they respect the principles and have fun at school. And by coincidence of life, the blonde and the protagonist were in the same room. The protagonist and the blonde and Kasetsu went to the cafeteria. The protagonist went to buy his food ticket and he wanted to choose miso ramen, but the blonde stopped him and made him choose ninja food, which was cheaper. And the protagonist, when he saw his food, he wondered, what is this? And the blonde tells him that although it tastes bad, it will fill him. And the protagonist wondered why do this? To what the blonde tells him that not to attract attention, since the Koga ninjas have a lot of money and power. And the blonde says that there are also a lot of them, and that there is no way to beat them, so she recommends that it is better to avoid getting involved in the Koga to the greatest extent possible. But anyway, it will not work, since the redhead and his gang realized that the prota and the blonde were looking over there. Even the blonde ended up running away, saying that he had things to do. This guy acts very aggressive with the prota and tells him to try to provoke them or something, but the prota only asks him what he is offered. However, at that moment the redhead told this guy to calm down, and that a real ninja does not show his feelings. The redhead approaches the prota and tells him that the future leader of the Segas does not know about modals. So here he asks him if he really does not know anything, since the redhead tells him that Mr. Kishimaru, the head of the village Koga, died, and tells him that they the ninja Sega were the ones who killed him. So the protagonist to hear this reacts surprised, since he obviously had no idea, and it was said that Mr. Kishimaru was the best ninja Koga in history, since no one compared him to ninjutsu and more than anything he was a gentleman, since he took into account the ninja world in its entirety, not only the Koga, since he wanted to close the ties with other villages. So the red-haired tilted says that he was a great person who should not have died. So the red-haired tells the protagonist that they will pay the giants for their crime, and that they will crush them completely, without fail and without mercy. After that the protagonist went to show him the bedroom, and when he sees the bedroom outside, he says that this is much better than his house, but they tell him that it is not this, since his real bedroom looks like a haunted mansion, and the prota thinks that people cannot live here. And I tell you prota, that's because you have not seen the people of Latam. And the bedroom that they saw in good condition, that was the Koga's bedroom. Once in his room, the protagonist realized that they were opening his door, but it turns out that it was Kasetsu, because he came in as if nothing. But here Kasetsu tells him that the Koga accuse them in false, and he also tells him that it is a waste of time to listen to what the enemies tell him. But the protagonist tells him that it is possible that an acquaintance of his has murdered someone. But Kasetsu tells him that he doesn't have time to think about things that don't matter, so he tells him that it's better to use the time to train. The prota today will have his first practice, and the practice will be done with 2 classes, so today they will learn seriously how to use the ninja suit and the ninja core. But the prota, when he heard this, was like, ninja suit? Ninja core? What is that? And Kasetsu told him that everyone knows him, but everyone except the prota is screwed, since he was not in a ninja secondary. For his part, Kasetsu obviously puts on the suit easily, and the prota wanted to ask him if he was doing it right, but Kasetsu simply ignores him. However, the prota could put on the suit, and today's purpose will be to adapt to the ninja suit. So they have to climb to the roof of the castle on the second island, since the sensei says that in the roof is the director eating some cookies, so as proof that they reach the top they must bring one. However, the director loves cookies, so they have to be careful, since he will continue eating while he has an appetite, and may finish them. And as it is his first field practice, the sensei repeated that they use what they saw in high school, so she gives the signal to start, and everyone run. However, the prota could not move, so he asked Kasetsu for help, but Kasetsu was pissed off, since he told her that he did not study enough, so she leave. For For their part, the group of the Koga are talking about the Prota, and laugh at him because he does not even know how to use a ninja suit. And since they think the Prota is so stupid, they say that they should send him with God, making him go through an accident. And the redhead tells them that this would be in the presence of the director, and that they should not act carelessly. The Prota still could not move, so the sensei told him that if he cannot even move, they will consider him not fit. So the Prota could be expelled, but the Prota says that all the less that. And to the Prota, but with the help of this waifu he can move, so it's time for the Prota to start running. The suit felt very light, so he was not paying attention, and that he falls into the ravine. Because Proto thought it was the end, but when he fell, nothing happened to him, since this is the power of the suit and the ninja core. And here the waifu warns Proto that if the ninja core breaks, the ninja suit loses power, so she tells him to be careful not to damage it for any reason. Meanwhile, the redhead is climbing the wall, and as he realized that Kosetsu is under him, he launched to attack her, but Kosetsu could block his attack, although because of this he went back a few steps. The first to arrive was the red hair, and the second Kosetsu, so the red hair tells him, and so you think you are able to protect your dear boss. And so little by little the students were arriving, until the blonde one arrived. Returning with the protagonist, he was running, but seeing the red hair he is distracted, which sees him with the face of this kid, and jumps to try to hit him, but at that moment Kosetsu appeared to interfere. Meanwhile the blonde also tried to return, but in that surrounded and asked him to give him his cake, since this student says that there is no rule that prevents them from stealing it. The protagonist finally reached the second island, and here he found the blonde, so the protagonist asks him who did this to him, but she lies to him and tells him that he ran into a wild Montez cat and attacked him. However, he knows that the Prota is not believing him, so he tells him that the truth was the Koga, and that they even broke his ninja core. Upon hearing this, the Prota says that they must be accused with the teacher, but the blonde says no, since he says that the same director said that nothing happens if they do not discover you, so the blonde tells him that as blonde that he was just very clumsy. Even another student also wanted to steal his cake, but in shock the Prota appeared and told them to stop, so the Prota will try to recover the cake, but he collided with the wall. The Prota was being beaten, and he was also tried to break the ninja core, but luckily the Prota reacted in time, and despite all the efforts that the Prota made, he ended up lying on the ground. But at that moment the director appeared and said that it was enough, and the student who was hitting the Prota tried to defend himself saying that he started it, but the director tells him that then it is also his fault to continue the fight. The director asks the protagonist if he takes him to the infirmary, but the protagonist says that he is fine, so having said that, the director tells the protagonist to hurry, since he is about to finish the cake, and when the protagonist returned with the blonde, he gave him a cake, but the blonde tells him that she could not accept it, but the protagonist says that it is not his. Since it turns out that at the time of the fight, it seemed that the Prota did nothing, but there was a moment where this guy could steal the cake, and this guy realized very late, and that he realized when he was already with the sensei, so he arrived without the cake. The Prota was carrying the blonde, but she tells him that here is fine, and that the Prota still does not finish the task, and at that moment that the other waifu appeared, and that Ryoko had already finished her task, so since that waifu appeared, the Prota will leave the blonde with her, since that way the Prota will be able to return faster to complete his task. The Prota finally arrived with the director, but the director only had a cake left, so at that moment the director ate it in front of the Prota. The next day, the Prota realizes that the students are evading him, and that is because the Kugas threatened everyone so that they would not talk to the IGA. However, at lunchtime the Prota was sitting with Kosetsu, the blonde, and the other waifu, so he's not alone. These guys are discussing the investigation of the murder of Kishinmaru, boss of the Koga. Meanwhile, this girl was arriving late to a place, and she was important. You'll see why. Continuing with the case, they say that the evidence in the crime scene are almost null, but the only clue there is a wound with a deadly weapon, and they know that this wound is a characteristic cut of the gills, so the main suspect they have in the investigation is nothing more and nothing less than Tokasada. And remember the girl I told you was coming late from somewhere? It turns out that her name is Shion, and they have just assigned her to this case of the investigation. And in the investigation of the murder of the head of the Kuga, what they have so far is that there is no witness, no suspect in the security camera. They have the crime scene of the murder, so they know that the most likely is that the culprit is a ninja. In the crime scene, there are no murder weapon, no bloodstain, no fingerprints, and the only clue they have is the mortal wound made by a peculiar weapon of the ninja Eiga. Here this girl is ordered to follow Tokasada and investigate him, and they ask this girl if she knows something about him, to which she says that according to the nickname of the demon Tokasada, nothing is certain, since all the rumors are full of superstition. But here this girl is going to show a video in which Tokasada knows something about the protagonist, and this girl was wondering what are those black spots in the video, to which they tell her that this is stalking, and that it moves so fast that the cameras only capture residual images, so this girl is told to consider that all the rumors about him are true. Meanwhile, the protagonist is in class, and they tell him that in 2 days he will open a written exam, and that the exam will be all about ninja tools, so the sensei will give them the minimum of tools and ask them to study a lot. So the protagonist will sit down to study with this waifu, since in the perspective of the protagonist it was supposed that he was good at studying. But this is too specialized, and he does not understand the question. But then Kusei and the blonde also arrive, and the blonde asks him if he really plans to study for the exam, since he tells him that in this exam the tools are choose to steal the answers because it turns out that the teacher hides the sheet of answers somewhere a day before the exam. So the joke is to find and steal it, obviously without being discovered, since if they discover you, you will be reprimanded, and the blonde says that it is enough with a sheet of answers for everyone, so the plan is to work as a team to get them, and even Kosetsu agreed on this. Returning with the red hair, they ask him if he will let the Prota walk at his will, but the red petty says that he does not need to act now and that the time will come. So this guy says that until then he will do what he pleases. The Prota tries to use the tool, but this waifu tells her not to worry, since most shinobi leave it in the hands of technician, and she also tells him that he does it because he likes it. And remember that the snorkel suits and ninja tools of the school are from the village of this waifu, so she is very happy every time she sees them. Seeing this, the protagonist asks her if she wants to be a ninja tool technician, and she would love this, but her father, the head of the Aigashu, since she was very little, she has told him that she will not let him be his successor, since she says that her father raised her as a lady, and she even begged him to let her enter the ninjutsu academy, but her father ordered her to forget about the ninja world when she graduated. When the night came, the protagonist was all thoughtful and he knows that Kosetsu is behind the door, and he tells her that he already understood how ninjas are, and that it is impossible for him to be the boss. So the protagonist asks why they would not choose someone like Tokisada or Kosetsu, to which she says that the lineage for the ninjas is important. And here the protagonist asks if she agrees with him being the boss, and she answers that she will accept it even if she does not want to. And that's how the ninjas are. The group is planning how to make the coup to steal the answers from the exam, and in that, these two students approach them and ask if they can help. This surprises the protagonist and asks them if it will not cause them problems to be close to him, to which he replies that he thought that someone from a small village like him could not do anything, but he saw how the protagonist fought trying to defend another student when they were going to steal the cake, so that inspired him in a way, and that gave him the impression that he could really do a lot. And since they have more members, the blonde says that they will strike tonight. On her side, Tokisada is on her side, and this girl is already following him. The night has come and the group begins to act, and the protagonist communicates that they arrived at the teacher's room. So he asks the blonde what the situation is, to which she tells him that everything is serene. Since they are outside the teacher's room, they are going to do interior recognition with a tool fly. So this waifu gives it to the protagonist and tells him that the honor is his, but Kozai was scared like, I say better not. The protagonist uses the shuriken drone to watch, and in that he could see the safe, but when the protagonist wanted to make the drone return, he stupidly crashed it with the door. This obviously alerted the teacher, so the protagonist wonders what is going to be now, but luckily they ended up escaping through the window, although the protagonist made another mistake and almost shit it. On his side, the blonde is almost uncovered, so they had to use a smoke bomb to escape. Returning with Tokisada, he is analyzing a place and sees that there are many security cameras in sight. But anyway, he is going to infiltrate very quickly. As the teacher went to chase the blonde and the other two boys, the protagonist entered the classroom, but he realized that the key to the safe is not there. So he comes to the conclusion that the teacher must have it, so he asks the blonde if they cannot take it off, but she says it is impossible, since he says that they can hardly escape from her, and as the teacher was about to reach them, they decided that it was better to separate. But this guy, when he went to his side, was hit by one of the koga, so when he hears this, Kosetsu will go to see what is happening. And the protagonist wondered what they were going to do now, but the other waifu tells him that he will open it to her, since he is going to try a new prototype of Saigashu to open locks and safe. So she says that it took a minute to open the safe. Meanwhile, Tokisada ended up infiltrating the place, and in that he opens a safe, since he was looking for some plan, but when opening it he did not find the plan, only money. For his part, the prot and the waifu could also open the safe, so since she has the answer, the prot warns to withdraw. So Gosei usually hears this, let this guy of which they were abusing the assholes go first. For his part, Tokisada was waiting for the girl who was following him, since he knew all the time, so when she appears, thanks to a ninja toy, he alerts the security cameras, so the alarm starts to sound and this girl is in trouble, since they started to chase her. Meanwhile, Tokisada, thanks to this, begins to walk through the place of Tranka Palanka. This girl will inform that she got her leg and lost sight of her, and that she could not get any information either. So they ask her if they get her out of the operation, but she asks to be let go, so they tell her to continue with her mission. When she hears this, she is surprised, but she tells him that the staff that does not flake facing that guy is valuable. The time of the exam has arrived, and the blonde was more or less the same, but this waifu tells them that she realized that the content was different to the sheet, so she says that she had to solve it herself. This actually surprises her since she could solve it, but she says that after all, she is still a Saigashu. Tokisada at the end got a little information of his mission, and that tells the mother of the prota that the head of the Saigashu told him that the objective of the koga is the secret ninja core of the IGA. This girl hearing this is surprised and asks if the secret ninja core exists in the first place, since it is supposed to be born in times of war and that it is too powerful, and the boss of that then buried the secret of that technology, so she thought that most had come out of a legend, but the mother of the prota confirms that it does exist in reality, and that the location of the secret ninja core is passed from father to son to the next head of the village. So the mother of the protagonist comes to the conclusion that the koga are looking to instigate a war. In the end, the protagonist and the others received a punishment punishment for reproaching, so they have to clean up, and this waifu is cleaning with them despite the fact that he got a perfect grade, the one who says that in the end they are all friends. And the protest seemed fun to him, since he says that it looks like a normal school, but in that Kasetsu holds him and tells him that there is a traitor among them. Since she tells him that the ones who changed the answers were the Koga, but they couldn't have done it without knowing why Kajiford would say so. Kasetsu says that someone is allied with the Koga, so when he heard this, he couldn't believe it. The redhead remembers what the village chief used to tell him, since the chief wanted to create a world where there are no ninjas, since he thought that ninjas keep peace without people noticing, but he said that when there are no more ninjas in the world, the true peace to the world will have arrived. Is injured, so the sensei reminds him that the ninjas lie very close to death, so he tells them that they have to take it very seriously. The protagonist, knowing that fatal accidents often occur, it is obvious that it is an opportunity for the Koga to attack him without fail, so the protagonist wondered if he could fail the exam, but as he failed the tool test, if he fails this one, they can expel him. The protagonist crossed with the red hair, which warns him that he is going to kill him and tells him that he will see. Meanwhile, this guy tells the girl who investigates Tokasada that in the history of the ninjas, the Koga have always had great power, and that they have absorbed other villages to increase their power even more. And this girl says that ninja orders now prohibit these acts of conquest, so that's why they buy businesses from other villages to absorb them. And the girl, when she hears this, says that she does not find reasons for such a crime, since she says that if it were still the work of the Siga, why would they have done it? But the problem now is that the Koga hate the Siga to death, so they are in a hurry for an open war to break out, and if that happened, the damage would extend to the civilian. So this guy says they have to give the truth as soon as possible and control the situation. Meanwhile, the Koga's deputy boss asks what about the contract with the Igashu, and he wants them to work on some plans which Roberto Quesada tries to steal, but this guy tells him that he feels it, and that this deal is not yet given, so the substitute boss says that they are necessary staff, so he tells him to get that contract, even if he has to use some force. The substitute boss is also going to talk to Jose Nasolas, who is the father of the redhead, and the substitute boss tells him that his son is at the top of the qualification, and that they say that his talent is similar to that of Kishinmaru, and the substitute boss instead says that he is a failure who could not even enlist in the academy, and also tells him that as he could notice, his health is such that he could die at any time, so he says that he always has in mind who could be the next boss of the Koga, so he says that he is convinced that the red hair has what he needs. The protagonist was reunited with the group, and the blonde says that the old dormitory must pass the exam, so they were going to start the first meeting, but the protagonist apologizes and says that this time he will not participate, and that the protagonist puts as an excuse that he does not want to cause trouble, but he did this because he knows that the traitor will not be able to do anything. At this time, this waifu approached the protagonist, and he wanted to give him a more recent prototype ninja costume of the Saigashu, since he tells him that in combination with a ninja suit helps to change face, appearance and voice, and that in comparison with the current model, its extended memory allows it to go to become anyone from this dormitory, but the protagonist rejects this since it says that if the Koga find out that he uses this, they will go to hunt them one by one, and the protagonist does not want this. Once in the protagonist room, Kusatsu tells him that they will go to the offensive in the practical exam, since she says that she will defeat the red Pelly, but she says that's how ninjas are, but this makes the protagonist angry and says that what the hell does that mean, and that he says that no one should kill or die, so he leaves the room angry. The protagonist, taking a night walk, meets the director, so he goes to talk to him for a while, and Kei asks the director if a ninja is a murderer, to which he reminds him that the three ninja principles are not to be discovered, not to kill, and not to betray, that he found out that his father died because he was a ninja, and that they blame the murder of the chief of the Koga, and that is why they are threatening him with death. So Proto wonders if that's really how ninjas are, to which the director replies that a world full of peace where there are no wars, crimes, or murders sounds like an unreachable utopia, but that it is too valuable to stop trying to get it. That is why now the ninjas are in charge of the dirty work behind the scenes to keep the illusion of peace. Here the director tells him that in the past, other guys came asking the same thing as him, and those guys were Kishimaru, the boss of the Koga, and the father of the protagonist, and the director tells him that after hearing his answer, the two said the same thing, which was that they didn't want to become that. The protagonist went to Kasetsu to ask him what his role would be in the exam, to which Kasetsu tells him that in the practical exam you have to steal someone's ninja core, so here the protagonist goes to train, trying to steal Kasetsu's, and she tells the protagonist that fighting head-on is not a good plan, but there is a way to survive, so she tells the protagonist that he has to set a trap for them and take advantage of their carelessness, and that he has to run away immediately if he does not give results. Looking at the map of where the exam will be, Kasetsu tells the protagonist that he will go immediately after the red hair to defeat him, so he tells the protagonist to stay hidden to steal the ninja core from anyone, and that after achieving it, he hides until the exam is over. He even marked the place where he has to set the trap, but since he told him this, Kasetsu put the map in the trash and tells him that he has to continue training, so he takes him to train, but at that moment, someone entered the room and caught one of the papers in the trash. For his part, Red Hair tells the people in his dormitory a plan with which they will finish the protagonist. They will try with the protagonist, but they see the plan and say that it is crazy. However, the redhead ended up up convincing them to do it, since he told them that if they think this is crazy, they should try to be better than him. And the redhead says that all this is for the good of the Koga. The day of the exam has arrived, so they will start the practical exam at the end of the course. So they are told that they will approve if they get the ninja core of another student within the time limit, and that they will retest if they lose their own ninja core. He also reminds them that the use of ninja tools with the intention of killing is prohibited. That said, the exam has started, so Kosetsu runs away in devil mode. The proto was hidden, and in that these guys came in, but they fell directly into the trap. So thanks to this, they got rid of a large number. So Kosetsu says that they could get rid of a large number, so he thanks the traitor. To which the traitor, who is this guy, wonders how he knew it, and it turns out that they had thrown that map in the trash with that intention. So it was like that, they managed to deceive him, but Kosasto tells the protagonist to hurry up and take the core from him and hide, but here this guy apologizes and says that he had no other option, since he tells him that he was threatened to end his village if he did not do what they asked him. The protagonist had taken the form of the traitor, so he was going to catch this other guy, but in that he could dodge it, and here the protagonist is going to take a big surprise, since this guy is really the redhead, and the one who seemed to be the redhead and is with Kosetsu is this other guy. And here he tells him that the redhead had said that they could not against her even if they attacked all together, so he says that they will not let him go even if it costs them their lives. So in that an explosion occurs. For his part, the protagonist tries to escape the redhead, but the redhead reaches him and tells him that the suffering of the Koga is not compared to this, so the redhead hits him. However, the protagonist tries to keep running away at all costs. The angry redhead asks why he was murdered, and says that for what they destroyed the peace of Mr. Kishimaru, so he tells the protagonist that he will pay for the crimes of the Higa. But the protagonist tells the redhead that he is the murderer, and that people like him are condemned to repeat it. So the protagonist tells him that there can be no reason to justify killing, and that you have to endure even if it hurts, and that there is nothing else. Since the protagonist says that if not, many more people will be hurt, so the protagonist says that that cannot be allowed. So the protagonist runs away again, since he is giving everything to survive. And just when the redhead was about to attack him with everything, the protagonist activated a smoke bomb, and achieved an opportunity to destroy the nucleus of the redhead, so the protagonist tells the redhead that he despises them. But he does not want them to become a murderer, and at that moment the protagonist fell unconscious. At the end of the day, the protagonist woke up in the infirmary, and both cousins and all the girls were waiting for him. What will happen with the protagonist? We will know that in the next video, and if you got to this part of the video, comment below.